In the sprawling metropolis of Viridia, a city of steel and glass, lived Elias Thorne. He was a man etched by time, with a silver beard and eyes that held the weight of 1,000 city nights. Invisible to the hurried crowds, he navigated the back alleys and bustling sidewalks, his life a quiet rhythm of survival. His companion was a creaking shopping cart, a mobile repository of discarded treasures, broken radios, dog-eared books, and to well-worn blankets. Elias wasn't born to the streets. His hands, though gnarled, remembered the precision of a master craftsman. He once owned a cozy radio repair shop by Roosevelt Avenue, a place filled with the hum of electronics and the smell of soda. It was a good life, made better by his wife, Clara, a woman with a laugh that could chase away any shadow, and his son, Julian, who once looked at him if he held the secrets of the universe. But life is a cruel mechanic. Clara fell ill, and the medical bills piled up like a mountain. Elias sold everything: his tools, his shop, even the antique clock Clara had given him to keep her light from fading. When she was gone, his world turned to grey. Julian, just a teenager, became bitter and distant. A final, heated argument shattered their bond, and Julian left, disappearing into the city's vast labyrinth without a word. That day, Elias stopped fixing things. He started walking instead. 4 years. His days were a silent journey. He knew where the warm air vents breathed, which dumpsters offered a forgotten meal, and which churches provided solace in a bowl of soup. He never asked for help, never complained. He was a man defined by his quiet endurance. But on a frigid November morning, as the sky hung low and heavy, his life's solitary path took a sharp turn. He was taking his usual shortcut behind the Greenwood grocery on Maple Street when a sound, faint and desperate, cut through the silence. It was a high-pitched, shaky cry. He paused, his heart throbbing in his chest. It wasn't a cat. He lifted the heavy dumpster lid, his hands trembling. There, nestled among the bags of refuse, were 2 tiny babies. Their skin, dark and delicate, was cold. One, a boy, cried softly, his small fists balled up. The other, a girl, was barely moving, her eyelids fluttering weakly like butterfly wings. For a moment, Elias was frozen in shock. But then his instincts took over. He stripped off his threadbare coat, a meager but life-saving warmth, and wrapped them both inside. He held them tight against his chest, their tiny bodies a sudden, overwhelming weight. "You're okay, little ones," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I've got you." He didn't think, didn't hesitate. He simply walked, his tired feet finding a new purpose. He stumbled into street, Vincent's hospital, his arms numb and his knees aching. But he didn't stop until he reached the reception desk. "Please," he gasped, his breath misting in the warm air. "Help them." Chaos erupted. Doctors and nurses swarmed, their movements a blur of controlled urgency. Elias stood outside the emergency room, his eyes fixed on the door. A compassionate nurse named Sarah approached him. "Where did you find them?" she asked gently. "In a dumpster," he rasped, his voice raw with emotion. "Behind the Greenwood grocery." "Your coat," she said, her eyes welling up. "It saved them." He stayed all night, a silent guardian in the waiting room. A volunteer gave him coffee and a pair of dry socks, but he refused to leave until he knew the children were safe. The next morning, Sarah returned with a smile that was a sunrise in itself. "They made it," she said, her voice filled with relief. "Both of them. We've temporarily named them Adrian and Ariel. They're stable." Elias wept. The tears, a release of something he hadn't known, was so tightly coiled inside him. Holding those children had rekindled a spark he thought had been extinguished forever. In the weeks that followed, Elias became a familiar face at the hospital. He'd sit outside the nursery, watching Adrian and Ariel grow stronger. Sarah would often join him, sharing stories about the twins, how Ariel would grip her tiny fist while she slept, and how Adrian loved the sound of music. Elias started to smile again, but his quiet peace was short-lived. Social services arrived, and the twins were placed in foster care. Elias, with no home or income, had no legal grounds to keep them. Sarah stood with him as he watched them being wheeled away. You saved them, she whispered, her hand on his arm. That's what matters. Elias nodded, his heart heavy, and returned to the streets. But he was no longer just walking. He started fixing things again: abandoned bicycles, broken streetlights, discarded radios. He gave them to local shelters and lonely people. He taught a young boy how to fix a broken lamp, a small gesture that felt like rebuilding his own broken life. He kept busy, and he waited. Deep down, he knew he hadn't seen the last of those children. 20 years melted away. Elias' beard was now pure white, his gait slower, his hands more brittle. He lived at the Haven House shelter, a quiet corner where he fixed flashlights for fellow residents and offered advice to young men teetering on the edge. Every year on November 3rd, he returned to the alley behind the Greenwood grocery. He didn't go to relive the memory, but to honor it. He would leave something warm behind: a scarf, a baby blanket, a pair of mittens, a quiet thank you to the moment that had reminded him of his purpose. He never expected to hear from them again. Then a letter arrived. The envelope was thick, with a gold trim. On the front, his name was printed simply: Mr. Elias Thorne. Inside, on heavy, parchment-like paper, was a handwritten message. Dear M.R. Thorne, 20 years ago, you saved our lives. We never forgot. Please come to the Riverside Banquet Hall on December 12th at 6 p.m. Formal attire is not required. Just bring yourself. With gratitude. And Elias thought it was a mistake. He hadn't been invited anywhere in decades. But something in the elegant script felt familiar. On the evening of December 12th, Elias wore his cleanest shirt, a navy blue coat gifted by a shelter volunteer, and polished his old shoes until they gleamed. He took a donated shuttle bus to the riverside. The building was a beacon of light and laughter. People in suits and gowns mingled in the lobby. But Elias felt as though he were a ghost among the living. The hostess at the door, however, smiled warmly. Mr. Thorne, she asked. He nodded cautiously, and she guided him into a grand ballroom. The lights dimmed, and a young man in a grey suit took the stage. His hair was neatly braided, and his voice was calm and commanding. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we're not just here for a charity. We're here to honor a legacy. Another man, taller and broader, with an easy, warm smile, stepped up beside him. 20 years ago, the first man continued, his voice ringing with emotion. My sister and I were left to die in a dumpster. We don't remember that day, but we remember who gave us life. The second man, his eyes shining, spoke next. A man with nothing but his coat. A man who didn't walk past. A man who gave us everything when he had nothing. Elias felt his knees buckle. He was gently guided toward the stage as the entire room rose in a standing ovation. The brothers stepped down and embraced him. Adrian, the taller one, whispered. And Ariel, said the first, his voice thick with emotion. You named us without even knowing it. Tears streamed down Elias' face as the crowd applauded, a wave of emotion washing over him. Ariel turned to the audience. Because of Elias, Adrian here is a cardiac surgeon and I'm a structural engineer. I just opened my own non-profit to build affordable homes. Laughter and applause filled the room. But that's not why we're here, Adrian added. We're here because it's time to give back. On the screen behind them, an image of a cozy house with a porch swing and a small garden appeared. Adrian took Elias's hand and placed a set of keys in his palm. This is yours, he said. Fully paid for, in your name. Elias gasped, shaking his head. I can't. You already did, Ariel said simply. And there's more, Adrian added. A monthly stipend, full medical coverage, and a workshop out back, fully stocked, in case you ever want to keep fixing things. The room erupted in applause. Elias, still in disbelief, sat down. Why me? He choked out, the words a raw whisper. Why now? Adrian smiled, his eyes mirroring his own. Because you didn't wait for thanks. You did it when no one else would. The story swept through the city's news, a headline declaring, From forgotten to family, the homeless man who saved two babies and was saved in return. 2 weeks later, Elias moved into his new home, Neighbors welcomed him with casseroles. Kids brought him old radios to fix. And every Friday, Adrian and Ariel came by with groceries, updates on their projects, and stories. Sometimes they would sit in comfortable silence, simply enjoying the presence of the man who had given them a second chance at life. Elias would look at them, his heart swelling with a gratitude that had nothing to do with the house or the money. It was about love coming full circle. The man who had once saved two abandoned babies from a dumpster was now surrounded by warmth, dignity, and family, his broken world finally whole again.